Hey guys, so Clockwork Night is finally legal, but at the same time, we also have a new ban list that's going to come into effect at the beginning of December, so I thought I'd provide some Cyber Dragon deck lists, and basically I've been just doing a lot of theory crafting in terms of what variant would work best, so I decided to bring two different styles. One would be more of a going first build with a small Spright engine, as well as just a more going second traditional build. And so you can certainly just fast forward to those deck lists if you're not interested in the theory part behind that. So basically the rundown is, Cyber Dragons are normally played going second, but as of I would say the last 9 months-ish, going second as a rogue deck has become very, very difficult, especially if you're a deck that cannot play Shifter. In current format, Tier Shizu, even with the ban list, still the best deck by far, and it's just tough for rogue decks out there, again, for those that are not specifically built to combat tiers such as with Necro Valley, Dimension Shifter, Dimension Fissure, Macrocosmos, the cards that just Cyber Dragons can't really play with. And so I wanted to have a more going first version as well. And to do that, I felt that, the Spright engine does really help with that. Not nearly as good as Spright Frog, of course, but it can provide, the monster negate or the spell trap negate, or maybe instead you go with the IP route and just provide some follow plays as well. And where Clockwork Knight can come in is the Spright monsters have always suffered from being low attack, well, for the most part, low attack monsters, and Clockwork Knight is interesting because it does give all of your monsters a boost of 500 and decreases your opponent's monsters by 500, so that 1,000 difference is kind of nice, so that they can't just easily attack over a red or a carrot, for example. And you also have a bit more, you have now the overflow from the Cyber Dragon engine, but also that smashers from the Spright stuff, and it's also Spright, very consistent. Although at the same time, the downside is that the going for a Spright variant can be rather clunky at times. Sometimes you draw hands that are just unplayable, but Cyber Dragons have been notoriously known for being a rather bricky deck at times, and just having just one card where it could have just popped things up, but you didn't, and you just have a terrible hand, because a lot of the cards in the Cyber Dragon strategy by themselves, they just don't do anything. For example, like Galaxy Soldier, Repair Plant, or Rev System, you need a certain combination of cards for it to do anything, so you don't have any kind of one card starters for the most part in this strategy. So that's why I wanted to build a going first build. And the Clockwork Knight, unfortunately, with the rivalry, it would be very nice with that law, kind of like how Zombie World works with rivalry. But because I'm playing the Spright stuff, I can't really play rivalry, but I'll show you what other side card I'll rather play instead. And the other thing is, for a going second perspective, I think Clockwork Knight, that's what it's really great for in Cyber Dragons, because you can contact fuse everything. So for example, tier elements, you can just contact fuse them for Counter Tech Fortress. It is a game mechanic, it is not by card effect, so the tier element monsters will not trigger, so that's really nice if you can actually get to that point, though. That's the problem. And again, aside from going second being very, very rough for rogue decks, the other problem is now Dimension Fissure and Macrocosmos are both at 3, and that is a problem for Cyber Dragons. Two big reasons. One, Galaxy Soldier play to go into Nova Infinity becomes dead, because Soldier pitches hers as cost, and you cannot do that with D-Fissure or Macrocosmos or any other similar effects like Dimension Shifter, Dark Law, things like that. Also, the other part is Counter Tech Fortress as well as Mega Fleet. They both require their condition to summon is that the materials have to be able to be sent to grave. So if you're under floodgates, like the cards that I mentioned, and you have to banish them instead, you actually cannot go into Counter Tech Fortress. So that really hinders that whole Clockwork Knight and contact fusing strategy. So for the going second build, I opted to put a lot of back row hate that you'll see, and I think that's sort of probably the way to go. Even with tiers, even though they don't play those floodgates, for example, the Sulik in itself is very good, because just negating the effect of a baby Cyber Dragon monster just straight up means that they're no longer considered Cyber Dragons, and for Fortress, you do need that original Cyber Dragon, or at least a monster treated as Cyber Dragon, to be able to go into it. So anyways, that's enough of me rambling. That's sort of the theory beyond it, and I'll talk more as I get to the profiles, and I'll try my best to be short as possible for each list, so that this video doesn't end up being too long, and so that you can see a lot of the cards just in a quicker fashion. So yeah, let's just get right to the list, and yeah. Alright, so let's start with the going first variant, which involves a Spright package. So let's try to speed run through at least the Cyber Dragon stuff. The 3 cores, the 3 hers, the only one Cyber Dragon, actually, because it is a going first variant, and so this is not something you can just summon without your opponent having any monsters, because you're going first. So it is there because you're gonna add it off the hers, and just the one action now because there is no machine dupe anymore in the going first variant, and even going second variant with Clockwork Night, because it boosts your monsters attack by 500. Machine dupe actually becomes rather conflicting, unfortunately. We have the 3 soldiers, of course, just because it goes into your Nova Infinity play, and this is now your only way of going into like your Nova Infinity play for the most part, because you're not playing machine dupe. There are other workarounds. For example, hers can become a level 5, but that effect almost never comes up. And the last monster in this sort of Cyber Dragon machine package is the King Regulus. I'm only playing 1, and to be honest with you, previously when I was playing with the Spright engine, I was actually not playing Therian at all because I was finding it would just constantly brick, but I decided to play just 1 in the 1 field spell, which you'll see shortly, because especially with Clockwork Night, and especially in a tier format where it might get milled and you can add a Therian, I felt it was right to play at least 1, and that reminds me the reason I'm now bumping it up to 3 is because of the tier Shizu, in case that they do get milled. If one of these soldiers goes to grave, then you just can't use it ever, so I just decided to bump it to 3. Then some spells, like I mentioned, the 1 field spell, it's kind of nice. The battle protection is really nice as well, and especially with Clockwork Night, it's kind of hard to get over them anyways. The 3 emergency, 1 repair plant, 1 rough system. I decided not to play Cyberload Fusion because while it is a good card, don't get me wrong, again in different variants of Cyber Dragons where you're mixing with another archetype, I find that it just gets a little too bricky, and that's why I decided to cut it. I maybe you could even consider playing the side, but I decided not to play it entirely, but it is certainly a great card and I do miss it. And this is the new card, which is the 3 Clockwork Night. Pretty cool that they actually finally made it. It was an anime card, and it's actually funny because this actually ended up becoming better than what it was in the anime, and just turning all of your opponent's monsters, well, any monsters on the field really, to machines is pretty funny, and you can just contact fuse. And the last card in the Cyber Dragon package is the Overflow. This card is really nice because it can just provide that pop, and is pretty easy to get it live. Okay, and then for the Spright stuff, we're just playing the 2 blue, 2 jets, as well as the 1 red and 1 carrot. Originally, I was trying just like 1 of each, but the thing is, I wanted to make sure that I can make the most out of it on my opponent's turn as well. So what I mean by that is, you do your first line of blue jet play on your turn, and then on your opponent's turn with the elf, you can, revive back the blue or jet and just have 1 more cycle of that. And then, so we are playing 2 starters. I was originally playing like 3, but to be honest with you, our Spright lineup is quite small, so I decided to just keep it at 2. And then we of course have the 1 smasher for that going turn 1 board. Makes it it's kind of nice to have along with the overflow. And so the Spright stuff, essentially, core is a level 2. It can get your Spright stuff going, and even if you don't draw any of these cards, you can actually still do full Spright combo, essentially because with the Nova that revives Cyber Dragon core, and you already have the Almirage on board at the point, so you slap on Infinity first, then you link off the Almirage and the core, go into Elf, revive back the core, link, or rather exceeds the Elf and the core into Gigantic, and then start your Spright stuff there. And you can check like my old Cyber Spright replay video for that, but again, I will try to provide some testing video later. And some staples, we have the 3 pots. The extra deck has become a little bit tighter though, so this probably, you might just only do 3 at a time, but it's still great for consistency, which this deck always has struggled. The 3 imperms, because it's a great card, and I opted to go with Summon Limit for this. I did need some kind of floodgate, and the reasoning behind this is because, especially when paired with Clockwork Night, for example, and then once you flip them on, they're kind of stuck at the 2 monsters, and then on your next turn, then you can just contact fuse away, go into Fortress, and try to go that way, and it just really slows things down, which is what this deck needs now. Because we don't build like the most oppressive board, we just need to slow them down and then just kind of like grind them and attack over time. And especially with the Clockwork Night, it just boosts your attack. And this is also good in the case that you don't draw Clockwork Night and this, which is kind of more reasonable because these are 2 like unsearchables. But on itself, this card is very, very strong and can just prevent things from going. I was also considering main decking Soul Drain instead, because that can kind of stop, slow down your Shizu tiers, as well as Flunder, because it does prevent also banished monsters from activating their effects. But I'll show that in the side in the going second variant. For now, I think I decided to go with Summon Limit for this going first version. So that's 40 for the main for this list. And then quickly running through the extra deck, we have the 1 Elm Rush. You need that to get the Baby Cyber Dragon Grave. The Seeger, I decided to play it, even though the extra deck is kind of tight and we're not doing Rampage anymore. But you know, you can at least attack over Baguska, for example. So it's kind of nice, and it's pretty strong, being able to boost itself to 42, for example. IP, in the case that instead of going for, you know, leave you on like red or carrot, for example, you just go for IP so that you can do Unicorn play to provide that disruption. 2 elves, originally in the first Cyber Spright build, I think I only played 1 elf, but the second one definitely can come up, especially in the grand game. And speaking of Link Tooth, Dark is very, very good right now. I am not running Bestials in this list, and part of that, you know, for example, with Clockwork Night, I mean, I guess that doesn't really work when this one, for a going second variant, that's why I also dropped the Bestials in that one, because for Clockwork Night, you really do want to be able to like special that Cyber Dragon, for example. But Dark, you know, it's just a good card right now regardless. Xyz, we have the Gigantic, just the one can only fit one. Traditionally in Spright you play 2, very nice, get your Spright stuff going. Because we're not playing the machine dupe stuff anymore, we really only just need 1 Nova, 1 Infinity. You're probably not being able to make multiple anyways with this particular version. We also have the Zeus, of course. You can either go over it with this or this, but super nice for that board clear. Some of the new changes though is now that because we have Clockwork, I'm trying triple Chimeratech Fortress, which might not be necessary, just 2 might be necessary, but you know, it's just such an easy way to wipe boards with Fortress with any Cyber Dragon, so it's really nice, as well as the 1 Mega Fleet, of course. I would say it doesn't come up as much as it did back in the old days, but you know, it's kind of nice. Like Elf, for example, is an easy way to just get rid of this, so it does force them to use their Elf. So yeah, that's it for the extra deck. And then lastly for the side for this variant, because normally you main deck the Jizukuru, but this is a going first build, so I decided to side it instead, along with some negations, which is, for example, the 2 Dark Rulers as well as 4 Variant Droplet. The reason I have a little bit more Droplet is because, you know, for example, with Clockwork Night, it definitely is beneficial now to try to be able to finish your opponent as soon as possible if you do draw the Clockwork Night, so that, you know, it's a lot of damage with Fortress that you can possibly do, so that is nice. But honestly, sometimes you just have to just try to clear them without dealing any damage, and Dark Ruler is just really good. As I mentioned earlier in the theory part, if you skipped it, don't worry. Basically what I'm trying to say is, you know, Macrocosmos, D-Fissure, like those are really detrimental to Cyber Dragon strategy, because the Galaxy Soldier would be dead because you have to pitch Herzler cost, and you can't do that under those floodgates. Same with Chimeratech Fortress or Mega Fleet, you cannot go into them under those floodgates. So you just have a ton of back row removal in the 2 Lightning Storms, or rather 3 Lightning Storms, 2 Cyclones, and the 1 Feather Duster. And then the last side card I decided for going first is Eradicator Epidemic Virus. And so the reason for this is, of course, you know, the Gigantic, you can make it 3200 attack quite easily. But the other funny thing is, because this requires, you know, a Dark Monster of 2500 attack or more, Chimeratech Fortress, funnily enough, because, you know, when you summon it, it's 2000 attack minimum, right? Because you're using Cyber Dragon and 1 other monster at least. And with Clockwork Night, it would actually boost it up to 2500, so it actually does become live. So even in the worst case of situations, like you could even make Fortress like using only your monsters on turn 1, which of course is kind of a neg. Although, also remember with the Therian ruling, you can, or not Therian ruling, but let's say you equip the original Cyber Dragon with Therion, then you can actually contact fuse that Cyber Dragon in the equipped spell zone with another machine monster you have to make Fortress, which just gives you a free body. It's a weird ruling, but that's how it works. And so yeah, that, you know, worst case, if you cannot somehow make Gigantic as 3200, this is still live with this. So with Clockwork, of course, to specify. So that's a lot of combinations to ask for, but I'm just saying that line of play is there. But Eradicator and getting the Gigantic out is pretty nice and pretty deadly. Okay, so that's it for this variant, so let's just quickly move on to now the next variant. Alright, so now for the going second traditional variant, so let's just speed run through this, and I'll try my best not to repeat any commentary, because some of you might be watching both of them instead of just one. So of course, this time we're actually going to go with 2 Cyber Dragons. Now obviously, normally you play 3 in a going second variant with Machine Dupe, but again, I decided to cut Machine Dupe even in a going second variant, just because of that conflict with Clockwork Night. And so I decided, but you know, originally I was trying like just 1 Cyber Dragon, but as a going second, you know, it is very nice to have that extra body special just to contact fuse everything. I might even consider playing it at 3 even without Machine Dupe, just because of how good it can be with Clockwork Night. But of course, Clockwork Night is unsearchable, so that's just how I'm rolling it for now. We do have the 1 Noxure again, just because it might not come up as much now that We're not playing Machine Dupe, and we're not playing double Nova, double Infinity. Still the 3 soldier in this list as well, in case it gets milled off the Shizu cards. The 1 Jizukuru in the main, just out some problematic monsters, especially tier stuff. 2 Regulus in this one, along with the 2 field spell, because, well, this card is pretty good in Cyber Dragons, and it's nice to have that battle protection, as well as a big body that can negate. Continuing with the spells is still the 3 emergency, 1 repair plant, 1 rough system. We are playing the fusion in the going second variant, whereas I was not in the going first Spright variant. Overload fusion, cyberload fusion, very nice. Along with, of course, our newest friendly member, Clockwork Night. Again, I already talked about this in the going first variant, so I'm not going to bother talking, but really good card. Onto some other staples spells is the prosperity. And as mentioned earlier in the theory crafting part, for those of you that weren't tuning in, a lot of back row hate because Macrocosmos Defissure ruins us in terms of our Galaxy Soldier Nova Infinity play, as well as not being able to contact fuse for Fortress. So we opted to just focus on back removal, because that's really all that matters, because once that's done, you know, we can try to like contact fuse things. Of course, against Flunder, then that does become problematic, and we do have monster negation cards in the side, but something like Tears, for example, like, even though, for example, their Select would go off, but, you know, realistically, that's fine. If the Select negates your Cyber Dragon monster, the baby Cyber Dragons at least, then you can't go into Fortress anymore. So it's nice to just clear the back row, just contact fuse everything, make a big body, and then you can just try to kill them. And then lastly, just the traps will be the 3 Imperms, as well as the 1 Cybernetic Overflow. So that just makes it a 41 card main deck for this going second version. I normally like to play a bigger list with Cyber Dragons actually for going second, especially in combination with Machine Dupe. But now that I'm trying to make this work with Clockwork Night, you know, you do want to make it a compact if you actually have a specific card that you want to draw. Next, again onto the extra, no need to mention the Almirage, the Anima, because the next turn hers are level 1, Seeger for the OTK. We have some other Link 2s that we can fit in this going second variant, which is a Nightmare Phoenix, which again, Macrocosmos Defissure, very bad for this deck, so try to get rid of it. The Dark, because the Chimera Tech monsters are dark, probably won't come up too much, but the extra deck in going second variant is very flexible, so Dark is just really good right now, even though we're not playing Bestials, and the reason for that is, you know, with Clockwork Night, you know, you do want to be able to special that Cyber Dragon, which means you have to have no monsters, so that's where it can kind of conflict, and I'd opted to get rid of it for this iteration. Just a 1 Nova, 1 Infinity. I always like playing 2 of each, but we're not playing Machine Dupe, so not as likely to bring out multiples. Dingirsu, and this is because Therian Regulus is a level 8, and the Chimera Tech Fortress is also a level 8, and as we all know by now, the Chimera Tech, the Cyber Dragon in the equipped spell zone can be contact fused along with the monsters, and just give you that extra level 8 in case you have to go into this. The Zeus for that board wipe, which is nice, and similar to the going first variant that I just showed, still going with that 3 Chimera Tech Fortress. Let's see if this works out. You might end up just only needing 2, but having 3 just puts a lot of pressure on your opponent if the Clockwork Night is live, and you just can keep contact fusing essentially until you run out. The other Chimera Tech monster, which is not as good in the current Master Rule, is the Mega Fleet, as well as the 2 Chimera Tech Rampage, because we are playing Overload Fusion and Cyberload Fusion, and also this might just come out of Nova anyways, and Chimera Tech Rampage is really nice for OTKs, but also can provide you that alternative way into going into the Nova Infinity line instead of the Cyber Dragon, and that does come up, yeah, so that's it for the extra deck. And lastly, for the side for this going second version is the, well, just as I mentioned earlier, just a lot of monster negation in terms of certain decks that require it, with the triple droplets and triple Dark Ruler. This is a little more preferable now if you also do have Clockwork Night, so you can just kill them that turn and not give them a chance to survive, but sometimes you really just can't go without Dark Ruler, especially when you're under certain floodgates, right, where you can't banish, and you cannot use droplets, for example, like Shifter under that. So, and then now more board clearance, along with the excessive amount of board wipe that you saw in the main deck, is the triple evenly, sacrificing the battle phase. Again, usually not a big deal, but in this variant where we are trying to pair it with the Clockwork Night, it does kind of suck, but you know what, sometimes you just have to. And then I decided, right now, a lot of going first cards, but technically can also be put in going second. And so that has 3 Rivalry and the 3 Soul Drain. So Rivalry is great along with Clockwork Night. It's like kind of like that zombie world lock. And you know, floodgates like this, even when you're going second, like it can actually do a lot of wonders, and just really put a stop to as they're trying to kind of try to kill you really. And the Soul Drain is nice against Tears and Flu, because this also prevents monsters that are banished from activating. Keep in mind with Soul Drain though is it's unfortunately like you do have to shotgun this, and the reason for this is because it prevents like activations, right? So if you like chain to an activation that's like, let's say in a graveyard, that one will still resolve. So you have to basically do it before they activate monster effects in the graveyard or banish. So that's kind of the downside, and it reveals which zone you have placed this in. But at the same time, it's a pretty strong card, and going 6 side cards is a little excessive usually for me. I only ever have played like 4, but as I mentioned, you know, it can be used going second as well. So that's why I decided to be a little bit more flexible this time around with the side deck for this going second version. Alright guys, so hope you enjoyed the Cyber Dragon list and hope it was interesting and helpful. Certainly it's a work in progress, but I definitely look forward to developing it and modifying it over time, and definitely look forward to your comments. If you have any questions about the deck, definitely make sure to leave it in the comments and I'll try my best to answer them. And so yeah, I'll try my best to also do some more testing and just get you some replays of both variants. I'll try to do that hopefully sometime in the next couple of weeks if I have the time. And so yeah, again, thank you so much for watching and take care everyone.